name's Mike Mangold. I'm here with Curt Brown. We're both from the jet class. Curt is probably the most important man we have in the class out here. He's director of operations. He's responsible for signing off all the race pilots, and he's racing the fastest jet out here.
I got into air racing through a friend that had some unlimited air racers, and he wound up checking me out in their aircraft, and with my background, air racing kind of seemed like a natural progression in the civilian world, and he offered me the airplane to race, and I went racing, and once I did it the first time, I was hooked. I was a weapons test pilot, so I got to fly different aircraft and fly with different weapons that had never been on an aircraft or dropped before, and did that testing, so that was kind of exciting because the computer said one thing, but you never knew really what was going to happen, and then obviously the space shuttle experience is really high on my list, but I have to be honest, the air racing, flying aircraft the way we do, close to the ground, going fast, and the competition is kind of a freedom that you don't really get in any other kind of aviation activity. Well, in jet class, I'm the director of operations, and the way I describe that is when a pilot's in the aircraft and it's moving, I'm kind of in charge of the way the operation goes. That's the training to get them there, the operations while they're racing on the course, and I feel I challenge myself. I put myself in charge of the safety of the class and the individual because I feel the training and the operations are what makes it a safe event. Our racing events are very important to us, and we want to make them safe. And so I think everyone, at least everyone that I know of in our racing family, if we can do anything to help another aviator out to make it safe, again, we're competitors, but to make it safe, we're going to help out. And the same way on the ground, if you have a problem with your aircraft and we have a part that you need, we're going to give it to you and let you use it because we're here to race and have fun and to compete. And it's very much like some of the car racing, that if they can help out and get another team going, they'll do that. But then once they get airborne or once they get on the track, it's going to be racing. We have certain basic requirements to be qualified to come race, and then you have to go through a school to get qualified to race on a course. And obviously, we look at a couple of things, but obviously you have to have the skill to do that, and that's kind of like what qualifications you have. But one of the big things that we look at, and I have a number of instructors, but the big thing we look at is also attitude. You got to have the right attitude. Not everyone's meant to do this, and we have guys that come through the school and they do the rookie thing and they go, well, this is a lot of fun, but it's not for me. So you got to have the right attitude, and then we also look. You can have a lot of hours as, and I'm not picking on airline guys because I kind of am one, so to speak, but guys, there's a lot of hours going straight level, but you got to have an air sense. You got to know what's happening around you, situational awareness, all that stuff. So those are the three big things. You got to have the skill, you got to have the right attitude, and you got to have the situational awareness to know what's going on around you.
So a lot of people have the desire to come out here and be air racers, but they may not possess the skills, nor do they realize that until they actually get here and perhaps get a chance to go through this rookie school. And experience.
Well, they think that, oh, we're doing a rejoin, or we're doing this, and we're doing that, and that's all that stuff. I can do that. It's simple. But when you put all that stuff together and close to the ground, going fast, with other airplanes around you, it snowballs, and it gets a lot more complicated than it seems. And guys see that, and they go, wow, that's not what I expected, but it's very challenging. Flying close to the ground and going fast is not for everyone. It's very unforgiving if you make a mistake. So a lot of civilians don't have that background just because you don't go do that.
Right.
And it's kind of illegal to go fast close to the ground because of the speed limit.
True.
It's kind of hard to get there, but you got to get there before you can get here. And the military guys kind of have that taken care of.
So let me ask you this. Do you have to be a super great pilot to win the race, or do you have to have a super great machine?
Well, obviously, I think you have to have a super great pilot.
So you think that's the major ingredient?
No,
okay.
It takes both.
Okay.
You got to have a good machine to go fast. But with a fast machine, if you don't fly the course correctly, then you'll either get passed or you won't go fast. And so it takes both. You got to have a good machine to get you there, but then you got to manage that machine and keep it on the course and fly the correct lines. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you.
You got to have the horsepower of the thrust to get out front. So
you're not going to make your slow airplane go faster by being a really awesome pilot. It's just not there.
Exactly. An awesome pilot can't bring a slow airplane in.
You got to have the equipment, but a fast airplane doesn't make a good racer because you got to manage the airplane. We don't sit around and say, well, it's good enough and forget about it. We keep trying to tweak and try to make it go faster. It's a team, and it's very much like my previous career in NASA. I was an astronaut, and then everybody said, oh, you're an astronaut, but we're just like the tip of the sphere there, and everybody behind us had made it work. Otherwise, we'd never get there. I describe jet racing, I mean, we're going really fast, okay? It's the speed factor, it's also the noise factor, the excitement of seeing airplanes passing each other, trying to get around. If you know a lot about aviation, you understand the skill that it takes to be at that altitude and passing, flying close formation around other aircraft. So to me, that's the exciting part of it. It's like any racing event, the unknown. And you don't know who's going to pass. You don't know if there's going to be a mayday and a guy has to pull up and come around and land, which is a skill that we practice all the time. It's just the unknown and the speed and the noise. But we're much more available than any other racing events I've ever been. I mean, the people can walk in our pits, they can yell at us, so we can come over, sign things, talk to them, explain what we're doing. They can watch us work on the aircraft. Actually, they can kind of be part of the team, so to speak, because they can see what's going on. The aircraft that I'm racing this year, or in the last few years, is light wing loading, so it's a rough ride on the course. And as you mentioned, my background in space, you're weightless up there, but I dare say around the course, other than when we pull in the hard G's making the turns, you're almost weightless the rest of the time because of the bumps on the aircraft. You're in the straps, you're tightened very down, but you're almost weightless. You're bumping so violently. But then obviously you get the 4, 5, 6 G's depending on what you messed up on that turn.
How do you pick up bruises and bumps when you're weightless, though? I wish I was weightless.
Well, because you're kind of weightless, and then all of a sudden your arms, you get slammed to the bottom, or you get slammed to the ceiling. It's not a very, I don't think it's what people, when they see the airplane going on our course and it looks nice and smooth, and if you had a camera in the side and you're looking at the individual, it's quite a ride. It's like, I describe it as a dump truck going down a dirt road at 100 miles an hour. It's,
I'd say that's a pretty good description, especially
brutal.
in the L-29s. How do you deal, you tell me how you deal with wake turbulence?
Well,
he does it because he never gets any. That's why it's not a good question for him.
Hey, I was behind you last year.
We typically will come up and lap somebody after about 4 laps.
Right.
We start lapping people.
Right.
So,
well,
wake turbulence and passing. Go ahead.
Well, as an aviator, you know what's coming out behind an aircraft, whether it's a prop or whether it's a jet. You know there's certain areas that you shouldn't fly in. And so you have to avoid those. And sometimes trying to avoid those are quite tricky because that's where you want to go. And if you avoid that, you're going to fly a different line, which is going to maybe make you have more G's and lose some speed. But the big deal is knowing where it is. And that's part of the problem, but we have a couple of little hills, ridges that we have to go over, and you go over that ridge, you know there's going to be a huge bump on the other side, so you got to plan for that. And then you may have traffic, you got to plan around the traffic. So, but you do not, what we emphasize is you do not get into the wake turbulence, the trash behind the airplane, because if you do, it can make you get to the point of uncontrollability. So as soon as we get close to or hit it, we have to get out of it, and that's what we train to do.
Right. And that's the mindset you got to have out there, and I think that's where the skill of the pilots and the experience really pays off. Hey, let's talk about speed a second. We talked about this before. How fast have you gone in any vehicle? I was going to say on the planet, or I have to say around the planet.
Well, actually, the fastest vehicle was the space shuttle, and it goes Mach 25. It's the fastest point that we are traveling is when we do our re-entry and we slow down and we're falling back into the atmosphere. We actually fall and we gain speed, but we're up. They reference as Mach 25.
Is there any perception of speed other than looking at some dial?
Yeah. Well, you're very high, so it's almost looking like, if you looked out an airliner window at the Earth going by, it's kind of like that. So you don't have much. You know, the speed is not there, at least looking out the window. You look at the gauges, it says you're going fast, but the speed out the window is just not there. Yeah. It's much faster on the race course or down low where you have that rush of speed as things are going by.
So yeah, this low altitude flying a fighter on the race course, real intense. I mean, you see bushes and stuff going by. What about G-forces and stuff? What do you typically pull on the racetrack, and what's probably been the most intense G's you've experienced in your aviation career?
Well, on the race course, so going around, if you're flying a perfect course, we're 3.5 to 4 G's, which is not too bad, but you typically don't have a perfect course because of traffic, whatever, so you'll get up to 6 maybe or something. You try to keep that as low as possible, obviously. I flew F-16s in my military career, and that's a 9G aircraft, and we would go to 9Gs, not a lot, but we'd go there when we had to, and that's probably the most G's I've ever pulled.
And in the shuttle, you don't get any more Gs in that, or?
No, actually, the shuttle's a pretty low G aircraft.
Okay.
On launch, it's only 2.5 or so, 3 Gs, and on entry, it's only about a G and a half.
Okay. Well, as we know out here, we're pulling 4 Gs around this course, but for 6 minutes, pretty intense. I mean, after 24 minutes, you're very drained, you feel beat up. This, to me, actually is pretty tough.
That too is the shuttle business. You know, we've had accidents. It's been on the media, and people do a lot of talking about that. And they go, "How can you get on that thing?" You know, people died and all that stuff. And you know, there's no vehicle that's ever been created by us humans that don't have some amount of risk, whether it's a train, boat, plane, space shuttle, race aircraft. And I think what we do is important enough to take that risk. And whether in the space business, what we did in the space business was very important, and we took that risk. And yes, people gave their lives up, but you know, we sacrifice lives for important concepts, whether it's our military or whether it's our space program. The race aircraft's a little bit different, but what we do is important, I think. We go out, we're exploring the edge of aviation. We're coming up with new concepts, new ways to do things, and it's a lot of fun.
You want me to pick on him? When's he going to let me win a race? Or when's Mary going to tell him to slow down? Really? No, what happened is you got too crowded in there. I
did.
I had a clear line.
But I tell you what, it was very surprising when I took my eyes off the Pace airplane and I went forward and I checked over here just to make sure I knew where everybody was, and I go, what is he doing out there? So.
Well, and also I pushed it up more than I ever had before.
No, actually, I was pretty quiet. I didn't say anything.
He was very quiet.
But I was going, you know, I'm glad to see this in a way. I was. And I said, that's great, because I'll be right there on him. I'm going to make him work. I'm not going to give it back to him. I mean, I'm not going to just let you take it and run away. I'm going to be there and make you work. And if there's a chance that I can get around you, I was going to make the chance. And we kept pushing and kept pushing. And it wasn't fun. Those laps were rough.
Yeah, it's no fun being in the jet wash.
No, it was
fresh jet wash.
It was brutal. And I had to get back into my formation skills and try to find a different area that I could fly close to you.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But that was pretty exciting. I think that's the most exciting race we've had.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I understand the fans were going wild.